The sky was a shade of ominous gray, heavier than usual. Scientists had warned the city for months, but most people went about their lives as if nothing had changed. Dr. Aisha Morgan, a leading environmental scientist and activist, stood on the balcony of her lab, scanning the horizon. From her vantage point, she could see the signs of something far worse than hurricanes or floods, something the media barely mentioned. "It's not the storms," she muttered to herself. "It's what we can't see coming." Her phone buzzed. An urgent notification flashed. Global carbon levels exceed threshold, immediate action required. Aisha's heart raced. She knew governments were slow, corporations were slower, and people, too often, ignored the quiet but lethal signals the planet was sending. She thought of the communities she had visited, small towns flooded by rising waters, farmers losing crops to unrelenting heat waves, and children whose futures were being stolen before they even understood the threat. And then it hit her. The greatest danger facing the planet isn't a single event. It's human inaction, greed, and denial. Determined, she called her team into action. But she knew fighting climate change wasn't just about science, it was about justice, accountability, and courage. Aisha looked at the horizon one last time before turning back to her lab. This was the battle of a lifetime. And if she failed, the consequences wouldn't just be statistics, they would be catastrophic, irreversible, and heartbreaking. The next morning, Aisha convened her team in the lab. Screens displayed satellite imagery of melting ice caps, deforestation, and cities slowly sinking beneath rising tides. "This isn't a future problem," she said, her voice sharp, filled with urgency. "It's happening right now. And the longer we wait, the worse it gets. If we don't act, entire ecosystems, communities, and species will vanish. We're talking about a planet on the brink." Her team nodded, aware of the magnitude. They had all dedicated their careers to environmental science, but the scale of this crisis was staggering. Every report, every data point, painted a darker picture. Aisha's phone rang again. This time it was the mayor. "Dr. Morgan, the public's panicking. Can we assure them it's not that bad?" Aisha's fingers tightened around the receiver. "It is that bad. But we have solutions. Renewable energy, carbon reduction strategies, immediate environmental policies. The question is, do you have the courage to implement them?" The mayor hesitated. Bureaucracy, politics, and corporate pressure weighed heavily on every decision. Aisha's heart sank. She knew the greatest danger wasn't just the climate itself. It was the human systems refusing to act decisively. Determined, Aisha decided to take matters into her own hands. She organized a live broadcast, reaching millions worldwide. "Our planet is at risk. Not because of one storm, one flood, or one fire, but because we have allowed greed, apathy, and denial to dictate our future. This is the moment to act. Together, boldly, now." Across the globe, people paused. Some scoffed, some ignored it, but many listened. Cities, corporations, and communities began to react, inspired by a single voice daring to speak truth to power. But Aisha knew the real challenge was only beginning. For every ally, there were countless opponents, lobbyists, industrial giants, and politicians unwilling to sacrifice profit for survival. The clock was ticking, and failure was no longer an option. Weeks turned into months, and the world began to feel the full weight of inaction. Entire regions were parched by droughts, coastal cities faced relentless flooding, and wildfires consumed areas once thought safe. Food shortages threatened millions, while endangered species teetered on the edge of extinction. Aisha and her team worked tirelessly, coordinating relief efforts across continents. Satellite imaging, climate models, and predictive algorithms guided them. But the human factor was unpredictable. Governments argued over funding, corporations lobbied against urgent reforms, and some media outlets downplayed the crises to avoid panic. Yet, Aisha refused to back down. She launched a global campaign, live-streamed from the world's most affected zones, showing real-time impacts of environmental collapse. Children crying for clean water, farmers losing their livelihoods, entire ecosystems disappearing. Her broadcast didn't just inform, they stirred the hearts of millions. "I'm not here to scare you," she said during one broadcast, her voice steady but urgent. I'm here to demand action. Our planet's survival isn't negotiable. Every second of inaction brings us closer to catastrophe. But there's still time. If we act together boldly and wisely. Her message resonated. Ordinary citizens, scientists, and activists formed coalitions, pressuring governments and corporations to enact emergency environmental policies. Renewable energy projects, carbon reduction strategies, and large-scale reforestation programs were suddenly prioritized. Then came the test of true courage. A massive hurricane, stronger than anything recorded in modern history, barreled toward multiple densely populated cities. Forecasts predicted catastrophic damage. Evacuations had to happen within hours. Aisha coordinated with local authorities, rescue teams, and international relief organizations. Using predictive modeling, she identified the areas most at risk and orchestrated a large-scale evacuation. Hundreds of thousands of people were moved to safety. Emergency shelters were established and critical infrastructure was reinforced. As the storm hit, devastation was inevitable, but lives were saved, and entire neighborhoods that would have been lost were protected. Aisha watched from a command center, monitoring each transmission, coordinating every decision, her mind and heart fully in the fight. The aftermath was staggering. Cities rebuilt faster than anyone anticipated. International aid poured in, and the world began to see the power of immediate, intelligent action. Aisha's leadership became legendary, a symbol of what courage, knowledge, and decisive action could achieve against what many considered an unstoppable threat. And through it all, her message remained simple yet profound. The greatest danger facing our planet isn't nature, it's human inaction. And when we choose courage, justice, and knowledge over complacency, even the gravest threats can be confronted. Days later, the warnings Aisha had feared became reality. Unprecedented heat waves swept through coastal cities, flooding rivers overflowed into streets, and wildfires spread across forests that had once stood for centuries. Emergency services struggled to keep up, hospitals were overwhelmed, and communities panicked. News anchors reported chaotic scenes, but it was the stories Aisha heard firsthand that fueled her resolve. Families were being displaced, children were losing homes and schools, and entire ecosystems were collapsing at an alarming pace. Aisha didn't wait for governments to act. She deployed her team to the most critical areas, coordinating evacuations, distributing clean water, and creating safe zones for those affected. Satellite data helped predict the paths of fires and floods, giving communities a fighting chance to survive. But even as her efforts saved lives, Aisha knew this was only the beginning. Behind the scenes, corporate lobbyists were attempting to stall emergency legislation, dismissing climate science, and undermining initiatives that could prevent future disasters. She took a deep breath and addressed the media once more, her words broadcast globally. The greatest danger facing our planet isn't the storms, the fires, or the floods. It is our refusal to act when we know better. We have the knowledge, the technology, and the power to change the course, but only if we have the courage to act decisively. Every choice matters. Every voice matters. And the time to choose is now. Her speech went viral. Millions shared it. Influential leaders and ordinary citizens alike began organizing initiatives, protesting environmental neglect, and holding corporations accountable. Even some politicians who had ignored warnings were forced into action under public pressure. But the battle wasn't over. The planet's systems were already reacting violently, and Aisha realized she had to take even bolder measures. Because of your work, my town survived the floods. Because of your courage, we have hope. Aisha smiled, feeling the ripple effect of her efforts. It wasn't just policy, technology, or laws. It was the awakening of human responsibility that had turned the tide. Turning to her team, she said, "Remember, the greatest danger facing our planet isn't the storms, the fires, or the floods. It's our failure to act. But every choice we make can save lives, protect ecosystems, and inspire millions to do the same. Courage is contagious, and action is unstoppable." News outlets reported her latest achievements as revolutionary. Her programs prevented countless disasters before they could strike, and the global community finally understood the truth. Inaction is the deadliest threat of all. The world celebrated not just survival, but transformation. Humanity had learned that justice, courage, and informed action could overcome even the gravest dangers. Aisha's legacy became a blueprint for generations, proving that the planet's salvation relied not on luck, but on the determination of those willing to confront the greatest danger head on. As she watched the sun set over a thriving, resilient world, Aisha whispered to herself, "We faced the greatest danger and chose to fight." And in that fight, we won not just for today, but for all tomorrows. If Aisha's story inspired you, hit subscribe to Dark Side of Luna and turn on notifications for more true life stories where courage, justice, and action change the world. Share this video to remind someone today that the greatest danger is inaction, but together we can rewrite the future.